condo down
Oh,
there.
that's nice.
Super quick question.
Yeah.
You didn't give them
Sorry, I think I figured it
Other
out.
side.
Right, we would not.
right.
But as long as I have
You just approved it all.
The Village Council regular meeting at 7:01, April 12th. Could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Lori Bourgeau,
Present.
Elsie Cook,
Here?
Maureen Halbert,
Here.
Allison Kemp,
Here.
Ashley Ross.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, up for consideration is approval of the agenda. I know we have some people with us this evening that maybe we can move up on the agenda just a little bit. So I would move to take 9A and 9D, which is the road professional services agreement and then the Highland treatment agreement, and place them at the end of, at the end of 7 before 8. So we will do the consent agenda and then row and then Highland treatment and then go into the unfinished old business before proceeding to the new business.
Support.
Okay. Any, a motion made by Cook, supported by Bourgeau, I believe. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nay? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item 5 on the agenda are presentations. There are none this evening. Item 6 is call to the public. So the public may voluntarily state your name and address and step up to the podium. In adherence to the Open Meetings Act, this time is for council to hear from you and not to engage in any discussion with the comments made. Each person will be allowed an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. I will have a timer on this evening. The public shall refrain from making personal and public attacks against council members or others in attendance and from making redundant comments, please. All public comments shall be addressed directly to the council president. Is there anyone who wishes to speak during public comment? Please go ahead.
Kelsey, do you want me to do time?
I got it. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Chuck Snyder. Just want to make 2 points with you. I called to your attention several things that I thought the village could do to improve our life here.
Traffic, noise, speed, better communication, and doing something about snow. And in the last 30 days, did we accomplish anything in those areas? Did we do anything? Have any conversations, phone calls, assignments to the village manager, anything? Apparently not. So let me give you one insight. We gave this gentleman, whose name was James Irish, we gave him an award for writing 3,183 tickets in our community. But no one thought about, well, why don't we try and take this 3,183 tickets and why don't we work to make that a lower number and make our streets more safe? That's a ridiculously high number. And you asked no questions about where were the tickets given, what time of the day was it, what were the tickets for, nothing. You took this information and didn't do a thing with it. But yet you should be trying to make the streets safer, not write more speeding tickets. You need to do your job. And finally, I brought this up at the last meeting. Now this is the second document. I submitted this to the village on March the 7th. Today is April the 12th. I paid to the village $300 for the planning and zoning review fee. I haven't heard a freaking word from this guy in 5 weeks. That is pathetic. Pathetic.
Please don't insult the council.
Yeah,
Mr. Schneider, just make your comments.
I'm not insulting you. Did you do this? No.
Well, you're directing your comments toward me and the council.
I'm telling you that this is a pathetic representation of poor management.
You can address that with Mr. Medora. Thank you.
No, you can take it as much offense as you want, but let's face the reality. The reality is 5 weeks. That's ridiculous. I've been a developer for 40 years, and this is the worst frickin' town I've ever been in to get shit accomplished. End of conversation. I hope I did it in 3 minutes. I wouldn't want to overtax you, because I know you got a lot to do.
Anyone else like to speak for public comment? Please feel free to approach the podium. Okay, we'll move on to our consent agenda then. 7A are receive and file items. Is there a motion for receiving and filing?
If there's no questions, I make a motion to receive and file consent agenda items A, 1 and 2.
Support?
Okay, motion made by Helms, supported by Bourgeois. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nay? Motion carries. 7B, is there a motion for 7B, please?
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items B, including the bills, the amount of $198,192.89.
Support.
Okay, motion made by Helmut, supported by Kemp. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Bourgeois,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes,
Kemp,
Yes.
Heller,
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next on our amended agenda, we will take the Hudson Dennison Construction Engineering Management Road Professional Services Agreement for consideration.
All right, Council, you have an amended agreement that has marked upon for Mr. Davis to review. This is 9A in front of your packet today. So, a couple things. The largest one that came to light was number I. On the back page where we wanted to insert some language, the limitation does not apply to claims related to gross negligence. This is just an overview review that David did. Things we wanted to add in there. Most of them are minor. So on the back is something that I did reach out to Leanne at Rowe, to the President of Rowe, and I forwarded them to them. She didn't see any issue with that language being added. She didn't quite hear back from their carrier today, but she said we should approve it with the condition of inserting this language. That's about the agreement itself. Mr. Paul Meara is here from Rowe. If you have any questions about the work being detailed or the oversight of the project or the scope of the project, this is the engineering and on-site inspections for the Hudson Dennison project.
So is there any design aspect to this work? It doesn't look good. That's done. Thank you.
Done up to bid. This is what we just opened the bids on March 22nd.
Does this also include Park Street?
Yes.
Mr. Madore, do we know the insurance coverage we have with Rowe for the village?
No, Dave.
And I just got that question, Mr. Madore, this afternoon, and unfortunately, with people that, I was hoping to get an answer from Mark, to be honest, so I don't have an answer yet. But I'll look at it.
So you're talking about the regular blanket liability coverage?
Yeah, professional liability insurance, I guess, and general liability, yeah. I didn't know what the limits were. I assume there's something in place probably that would cover this, or should I not assume that?
They have the coverage, and where, the liability,
Well, it's an item C on insurance, safe harmless. They secure and maintain insurance to protect the engineer and the owner. I think you could, if you approve this tonight, just approve it subject to receiving those insurance coverages
and the inserting of the,
and the insertion of my gross negligence clause, which I think shouldn't be. It'll be acceptable. One thing, just as a note on the beginning page in section 1, I think when you reference, the proposal, it's if and when you can, try to incorporate those proposals by reference into the contract itself, so that going forward, we'll always know what the proposal was, which is really the scope of service. So the scope of services is the proposal, and instead of reiterating that all in this contract here, you should incorporate it by reference.
Yeah, agreed, thank you.
it doesn't mention the streets in the,
Right, but the proposal I read the engineer's proposal is pretty detailed. And if it's incorporated by reference, then I think all the information for benefit of both sides is in place.
Any questions or comments of council?
You looking for a motion, Kelsey?
Yes, that'd be great.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract for engineering services for the 2023 street paving and water main project with amendments.
And the production of the insurance coverages.
And subject to insurance scope of service,
Sorry, just this part.
or whatever the heck she says.
You have to wait.
I think we've got that.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Helmut, seconded by Ross. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, a roll call vote, please.
Em,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Almond,
Yes.
Rochelle,
Yes.
Cook.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next up is the proposed extension of the Highland treatment agreement.
And we have some folks here from Highland Treatment this evening. The agreement is in place there. Again, they've been for many years. It's been a great service to the village. Spoke to Don Bradley again in further detail about it today. I think at one time we had 2 full-time DPW employees that used to run the plant. And so there's some significant savings, I believe, versus that cost and this cost. Those breakdowns are in there for a 3-year contract.
Council have any questions on this contract? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the village manager to sign the contract extension with Highland Treatment effective May 1st, 2022 through April 30th, 2025 at the rates shown in the Highland Treatment letter dated March 14th, 2022.
Second.
Motion made by Cook, seconded by Ross. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Almond,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Em,
Yes.
Rochelle,
Yes.
Cook.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming out.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we will go up to we'll go to 8A, which is unfinished old business, the residential rental registration or inspection ordinance discussion. So this is a time for council to discuss further the rental registration ordinance, which is up for a second reading later on in the agenda, and also a potential inspection aspect to a future ordinance that would be separate from the one we're considering tonight, but we'd like to have some discussion on that. So this discussion of these ordinances have been kind of going on for quite a while, and I know council in the past was considering an inspection and registration ordinance, and then the pandemic happened, and given the eviction moratorium and a lot of other things going on, it was kind of put on pause. So whatever the outcome, I want to get to some decisions so we can put this issue to rest one way or another. So looks like we have a rental inspection information sheet that has some items for what we could consider potentially in a rental inspection. And then a proposed ordinance as well from Mr. Davis. The registration aspect, obviously we considered last time and had a public hearing on that. And we also received a letter from the fire department indicating the need for really just the public safety aspect of knowing who may be living in certain dwellings, particularly within the village of Oxford, where we have some historic homes that you can't really tell if they're a rental unit or not included in the home. So with that, I'll stop talking and open it up. Any council members wish to start any discussion, ask any questions, or Mr. Davis, if there's anything you want to add, please feel free.
Could we potentially break the discussion into two parts?
Yep.
Just so that I'm not getting muddled, since I
Yeah.
think they're two different.
What do you think we should start with? Because the registration piece is on the agenda later. Right now, we could start with just the inspection portion, if that makes sense to everyone. Kind of go with that, with the inspection, the concept of the inspection.
I'll go first. I like the concept, I still think that this is too much.
Are you referring to the list of items?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I think that this is still overarching, like, getting all wiring to code. I understand the safety aspect of it, but that's an immense expense. I mean, if it's in good shape, it's not like it's not out of code, it's just not up to our modern standards per se. Same thing, like, things like a rigid metal pipe for the dryer exhaust, like, just little things. I think we're just getting into the nitty gritty, and I think we're really trying to keep it bare bones safety aspect.
On that particular one, I would defer to the fire chief on the rigid pipe versus the flex pipe for dryers and stuff. I don't know to what extent that's an important item.
That would be the mechanical.
Okay, but I mean, of a concern of yours, I don't know if you see that's a problematic issue or not.
If it's existing right now, there's probably
Yeah,
50% of us right now have it
Okay.
throughout the entire community, so.
okay, there you go.
Okay, that one can go. Are you?
Go ahead.
So, I mean, I think this is what I was looking for. You know, I think I would want to go through and look at some of these and like add a couple of simple things. Like if there's a basement bedroom, I would like to see like an exit. You know, the window exit, the egress. I would like to see like a guarantee of a structurally sound stairwell. If some of the stairwell, I know that's been a problem in the past where stairwell on the outside of a building wasn't sound enough for emergency personnel to go up. So those are things I'm looking for. I'm definitely not looking to nitpick, and I would like to see us talk about some sort of appeals process. So if it ever does become we're an overzealous inspector or whatnot, there is an outlet to right the wrongs that are there. But I mean, this is something, I've been in apartments, I toured apartments before I found mine. There's issues. It's not all landlords, but there's some landlords that are taking advantage of the elderly, the impoverished, people who don't have first and last month's rent and don't have money to afford it in court. I've told this story before. Things can happen with a great landlord. I have a great landlord, and some of you have heard the story. I apologize. But I think it really exemplifies, the need for this. My fuse box is in my pantry. I stuck a cereal box in my pantry, and my lights turned off when I bumped the wall. It turns out, I did some Googling. When I Googled my fuse box, it had been recalled about 30 years ago and was linked to all sorts of house fires. My landlord's wonderful, brought it to his attention, he replaced it. Electrician pulled it out. What was happening was that the breaker wasn't flipping and all the wires were melted. Hence why my cereal box could turn off the power to my apartment. So no one official had looked at that fuse box in 30 years. That's something that we could catch in an inspection. It's not, I'm not looking to fix the cracks in the wall and make everything picture perfect, but I'm looking to catch the life and safety issues.
So in our fire chief's letter, he mentioned 3 things that he considered to be important for life and safety, and that is smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, and an address on the outside of the building indicating, if there's more than one family dwelling unit in the building, then it would have 2 addresses. And so that would be the extent of what I would feel comfortable with doing for an inspection, just to address the safety issues of knowing who's in the building. Anything more than that, I don't know if I would necessarily agree to, just because it's, I think a private issue between the landlord and tenant, number one. Number two, a lot of landlords are literally collecting the rent to pay the mortgage. They don't have the extra funding. It's not all properties are money makers. You can't assume that every property that's a rental unit is bringing in revenue that exceeds the expenses of the property. And so I'm conscious of that, particularly given the moratorium on evictions over the past couple of years. And I know there's two sides, obviously tenants who couldn't afford to pay their rent, but the landlord who can't afford to pay the mortgage is kind of equally a victim in this situation. And so those kind of are where my concerns lie. So I guess I'd agree to a compromise in a way of an inspection ordinance if it just contained those three items. But, no?
I don't have a problem with anything on this list. And I'm going to tell you what, I've been reamed by several of you in the last month. And at public hearings, we don't get to talk back. But one day in the streets, Chuck, you and I are going to have a conversation. Rental homes are a business. No one gets into the rental property to offer a cheap, nice place for a kid to live. You do it to make money. I'm not saying you get billions, but you do it to make money. And they're a business, not for the person who lives it. It's their home. It's your business to rent it out. And those people, every business in town is inspected. Patterson's Farm is inspected every year. How many businesses have you been in this year, Pete? All of them yet?
No, only halfway right now.
You're gonna get through them all?
Yep.
And they're all money makers. You do it to make a profit. They're businesses. Some of you are better at business than others. I'm not saying you're all getting rich at it. But no one buys a rental home just because they want to give a kid a nice place to live. That's mom and dad. That's not a rental home. These are safety issues. I would want to talk to someone about each and everything on here, but most of them I completely agree with. And there's something that should be in these homes anyway.
Can we talk a little bit about, logistics of an inspection ordinance? And I didn't get a chance to read the proposed because it was just given to us, so we can take more time to read through it. But we had discussed in the past that the property owner would be responsible potentially for hiring the inspector, having the inspection done, and then just providing the report or providing something to satisfy the requirements. Is that still the thought?
That would be my preference. McKenna, this was, I think, back in November, we looked at this. This was, I think, what we had then too. It's a little a la carte in a way. They want to do front-end work to set up the inspections in their BSNA. Then they want to do the inspections through a period of time. And then they charge like an hourly rate to do the inspections, and the inspections are estimated to take 30 minutes. There's a lot of logistics go into that. How are they going to contact folks and how are they going to set them up? One of the concerns brought up back then was, certain people in McKenna do certain things and certain don't. The one person that does our plan review doesn't do any inspections. We have individual electrical inspector, plumbing inspector, mechanical inspector, and building official. They would have to dedicate someone pretty much to this that has the licensing and the wherewithal to look at all aspects of it. Otherwise, you're traipsing 4 different trades through there. If we had a system or a standard that we said to them, here's our standard, you hire your own building official, you do the inspections and give us the report, but we have to make sure that person or whoever's doing that is not just a home inspector. It has to be someone that has certification, like a building official or an electrician. That would be my guess. McKenna can do it. We could have them do it for us. It just takes away that option for somebody who has a different option that they might want to use. We would still maybe want them to incorporate the front end, the back office end of it, and to get it set up maybe. Let's like right now, when people send in a report or an inspection or building inspection. We bring them in, we log them into our system, whether it's electrical inspection or whatever. Kim takes care of all that in the building already. So those guys work like 2 days a week, 2 hours a day. They're in town for electrical or something. It's gonna be a little more difficult, I think, to catch up with some of these homeowners because they're just not available during the day. So that means you're looking at an evening or a weekend inspection. So there is some logistics to be worked out on that for sure.
Doesn't McKenna currently do, I think you said, our mechanical and other
Different folks, yep.
inspections?
We have a mechanical inspector, plumbing inspector, electrical inspector, and then our building inspector, who's the building official, does plan review and stuff as well.
Right, because they take a really long time to come out already.
Yeah,
So,
they're available like 2 days a week, and one of them, 2 hours a day, because they work like half a day in Troy, then they work like half a day here, 2 days a week. We lost our electrical inspector to a full-time position in Troy last fall, and they replaced it with a new electrical inspector. But yeah, our building official is only here twice a week, 2 hours each day.
yeah.
So that's already a bit of a, keyhole you gotta hit just right as someone trying to reach him or get an inspection from him. So those, I don't know how much available those guys would be. I think they would maybe have to just dedicate like a building official or someone that does this in another community, say, all right, now you're taking on this community to do inspections, and they would have to set them up and schedule them and perform them.
And then the property owner would pay the village, and the village pays McKenna
Yeah.
to cover the costs completely?
Yep. And that cost isn't hard and fast. And they said it's $50 an hour, estimated to take 30 minutes. Are they going to drive out here? About 3 years ago, when we were trying to manage our backflow prevention program, we tried to line up all the equipment for folks, and the contractor wasn't McKenna. Said, well, we'll only come out to town if you have 4 of them, and they weren't even that far away. So we'd be trying to set up appointments. People would get 3 of them that day, and all of a sudden we couldn't get somebody else to fill it, and the day rolls around. Now we can't do any of that day because they wouldn't show up unless it was 4. It was a real scheduling nightmare.
Sounds like this could be too. That's why
Yes,
I'm,
that's why I like the idea of like the Water Resource Commission or other ones on this backflow vendors. They have a list of qualified vendors, and that's important. And then the homeowner can call from that list, get their inspection, upload their inspection to the Water Resource Commission or whoever community it is, and be satisfied. This is much trickier though. Who are you gonna have that's gonna be qualified to inspect it at our level or our format? Not just somebody that sat for a 2-hour thing on a Saturday. It's a home inspector.
yeah. I just know that it's like nearly impossible to get plumbers, electricians, like even contractors to come out to anybody's home to get work done nowadays. They're in such high demand, and not many of them out there, honestly, so there's just some concern. But Allison?
I would like to hear McKenna, opinion of who they have available or what time frame they could do. My concern with each property owner hiring an inspector would be, again, that it's someone who took a webinar and clicked through some slides. And my other concern is you hire Cousin Bob, who's an inspector, to sign off.
Let me back up 1 second. I'm sorry to interrupt. Mr. Jackson, back in this November, this was just, middle of November. We know what happened at the end of November, then there was a holiday. So he's willing to come out here and attend a meeting and answer those type of questions. How do we get around those things? How do we schedule them? How's that going to work? How's it going to look? Because he's trying to tell me, well, we've done other communities kind of like this and kind of like that, and it's about this much. It's not really nailed down. I would suggest, even if you're going to do those, that you may want to do the registration thing if you're going to do those first. Get those on the books for 6 months or a year. You can't go out and inspect things you don't know where they're at, right? So why not register them and get them on first? Get that database built up. That'll make it easier then to line up those inspections, I think, for them to hand that database over to them to do the outreach for.
I would definitely like to see something on the books that this is going to okay, so we do the registration now. In 6 months' time, this is when this starts. So it doesn't become this endless cycle of the rental inspection just disappearing into the abyss. I'm sorry, there, lost me.
So I like the thought, starting with the registration. I think it's really low stakes and at least gets us where people are, a list to chief of where renters are. In theory, I have no problem with anything on this list, in theory. In actuality, and just practicality of not only implementing all of this, yes, it is a business, but then following through and getting all the inspections, I just don't see us anywhere near this anytime soon. The 3 things that Chief has pointed out, I think are things we can implement quickly and are life-saving smoke, carbon, address. I mean,
That might be
that's,
something we could suggest or even accomplish through the registration. Say, look, here's the things our fire chief is looking for, you know? You need this, you need this, you need this. He's gonna be looking for them. Now,
You're saying just for them to upload it with a photo of it and each.
well, we can at least suggest them, hey, there's what they want, here's what the fire department wants. Down the road, we may have to come and physically inspect and verify them, but these are the things we're gonna be looking for. This is the things that the fire department wishes you would have, and strongly suggest that they do it. And I would think a lot of them would say, oh, well, okay, it's $4 to go get a couple numbers at the hardware and put them on the house if they don't have them. There's a certain size requirement for things I know you have. But I think we could educate them at least on those things, and the fact that there's so much for their own benefit. Might be some self-governance on their end to get it done.
I think from a practical standpoint, I mean, really this started off as just a safety conversation. Yes, these things would be lovely. I really do believe in a majority of them. At the end of the day, I do think some of it's a little overreaching in some instances. Not that I still wouldn't like to see it, but it's still, I don't know how we're going to, as a village, be able to accomplish this, where we're at right now.
I think if we're going to do an inspection, the whole purpose and point that I keep hearing is to make sure everybody's safe. And if an inspection is done, I think it should be fully on, you know, is this a level 5 extremely dangerous or level 1 low? And if they're 5s, that's what we need to be looking at, is those things that could cause a house to burn down at any second. And if it's just your guardrails wiggly, you know, your step rail wiggles, I don't see that is our concern. You know, I don't want to see an inspection come out and get their measuring tape out and say, oh, this gas valve is 2 feet and 1 inches. You're in big trouble. If you're gonna come out there and say, your furnace is, you know, your exchanger is cracked, and that's gonna start leaking at any point in time, that's what I see as a concern. That's what I would be okay with when it comes to it. Is your life in danger tomorrow if this isn't corrected?
Mr. Davis or Mr. Medora, do you know if McKenna does work with any other communities that have an ordinance like this in place, that maybe they could come in and speak to us a little bit more about?
That they do, and they come in
You
different
volunteered to come in and
shapes.
talk about
They
it.
come in different shapes and sizes, right? So there isn't a hard, fast rule. This is exactly how we do it everywhere. That's part of the problem, is the
Chief,
variations.
some of your initial concerns are that there be a detector and an address, right? That's a big issue. I mean, isn't it possible we could accomplish those 2 things by having the registrant certify that an address will be created to the registered unit and that a smoke detector will be installed on the registration process instead of creating 2 processes initially? You can feel free to come up and talk to me.
I'd love to hear your thoughts about any and all of it.
Evening, council, residents. One issue with the smoke detector portion of it, you've probably seen it in the paper, this fire department's coming out with a smoke detector and carbon monoxide blitz basically throughout the entire township and community that we'll be coming out to. We've applied for a grant, and we've also gotten fairly large sum of donations from most of the insurance companies to actually purchase them. We've already placed an order for close to $10,000 worth of smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors right now. When we come out to do them as part of our program, it will be that they have to be installed as the regular code is right now. If you were building a new home or doing whatever, there has to be a smoke detector in every single bedroom. Got to be one outside the hallway, one at every level, kind of a thing. So we will be installing, as part of that program, up to 6 detectors per residence. You know, obviously it's no charge, it's all part of the grant process, we'll be doing it. So I mean, if there's some people that are afraid that they can't afford a smoke detector or something like that, you know, hey, we'll take care of it, or you'll be part of it, kind of a thing like that. Hey, I don't want to be at the same time us doing something that, you know, a business owner doesn't want to pay for because they're just, you know, trying to cheap out, but at the same time, you know, we'll be working with them that way. But definitely, if we're going to doing the detectors, then I want to make sure that we're done to the code like that.
Is it too much to say, if you come out and do those and add a little looky at the electrical, I mean, obviously the electrical has to be up for you to put it in, right? Is there any opportunity, any chance that you go out to put this in and you can't do it? Because you're putting it in hardwire, I assume?
We're
or is it
doing
a
both.
battery?
We're going to be doing both. If there's a hardwired one in there, then it's old, we're replacing it. Detectors are only good for 10 years. And now the ones that we install in the code nowadays, they all have to have the, you know, the 10-year lithium batteries in them to begin with. And even the hardwired one, 10 years old, should be replaced. So we'll be replacing them with some adapters for the electrical ones, and or they will be also the battery ones. So we'll be doing both of them. We also, when we normally do them as part of our program, it's a quick home safety that we're going through, just to make sure that we're not, you know, traipsing over extension cords, laying all over the place that people can trip over, or they're underneath the carpet, you know, because again, you walk over and you take a chance on crushing them to short out later on or something like that, or a trip hazard. But it's just a quick safety, you know, talk or whatever that we're doing when we're going through them. It's not a full-blown inspection that we're going through.
Thank you.
So Chief, so since you're here, I know the village council has been interested in hearing from you, and let's just, can you just present your opinion with respect to the registration portion of an ordinance scheme?
The registration component of it, of the inspection program, is something that I've asked for or looked for. And again, it's because downtown businesses, you know, we know darn well that there's apartments up above just about every single downtown business, and there has been for years, because we've been up in them and been back and forth. But it's when you've got the older homes on Main Street or even some of the side streets, you know, it's a big older home, and you get there for a call, whatever, and, you know, respond to, you know, 123 Main Street, whatever, and you get there, and it's like you're knocking on the door, and it's like, no, we didn't call you. Well, somebody from this address called. Well, maybe it's the one in the, you know, around the side, or maybe it's the one in the basement, or maybe it's, you know, again, not knowing that there was even apartments in that building to begin with. Again, I keep bringing it up. We've had an instance down in South Washington Street that we had a porch fire years ago, and when we get there was a family. Yep, we're all outside, everything's cool, and then it's afterwards we found out that there was actually a tenant that was living in the basement, and at the time, had there been anything else, we never ever even would have known to go down there in the basement to get somebody out, because the family was outside, you know, standing on the sidewalk out front. So it's those instances, what we're looking for is just to try to get some notice ahead of time. Any of those we get from the registration, we can enter them into Prentice at dispatch. So when dispatch dispatches us to 123 Main Street, they're going to be able to tell us that is a 3-unit, 4-unit, 5-unit apartment complex or whatever. And again, okay, fine, we know what we're up against when we're getting into it. But again, as far as the inspection program, I'm not looking for, you know, chip paint. I'm not going to look for somebody's peeling wallpaper or somebody's, you know, frayed carpet or anything. That's not my purpose, and that's not what I'm there for. Fire department doesn't have jurisdiction over home residential. We have jurisdiction over commercial. And a multi-unit building like that is termed a commercial, because basically that's what it's there for, is you're renting out a building for rental. That's why we're there.
So you find a safety value in the registration?
Biggest part of it, yes.
Have you seen this list of inspection items?
I don't remember, no.
Would you, before the next meeting, would it be okay if we got a copy of it and kind of got your feedback on
Sure.
these items?
Be happy to look at it.
Appreciate that.
Just want the council to know, this version of the inspection portion is really just a carve-out from something I wrote a long time ago that was mixed in with registration. So this isn't really, this is conceptually ready for review, but I would have to convert this into a standalone, you know what I mean? I still have to make this into a standalone provision. If you remember, we've gone around and around, so at first it was a combination, rental inspection and registration ordinance. We then carved out registration only, and this is what was left on the inspection part, but it would still need some work.
Your jumping point.
Yeah, it still needs a little work.
One quick thing, again, I'm not, from our side of it, again, I'm not looking, to go into and bash everybody going into them. Like I said, it's pretty common little things I want, but the biggest concern I have, and I know the biggest concern the business owners have, is again, number one, there has to be a means of making it happen. So that there's gonna be whoever's gonna inspect it, that it's all equal, done across the board, and at the same time, there's gotta be a way of enforcing it. At the same time, we're not trying to, it's not a money grab. On my part, it's not a money grab. I would hope that the village is looking at it too, that we're not trying to make a buck on the side by just, requiring it to be done. That's the biggest part of it, is gonna be the facilitating it and enforcing it.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks.
I would love if all of us went through this. We can send it to Peter. He can review it, weigh in. I think we should definitely, this needs to be talked about if we go forward with this. I don't think all of these are necessarily at face value makes sense for us. I don't know, we can look at some other ordinances. I know, Joe, you've sent out in the past, you can resend them out, example
City of
ordinances
Lapeer.
from
We
Lapeer,
gathered quite a few
Waterford.
of them, yeah.
But I'd love for us to come back next month and discuss this. And I'd also like to hear from McKenna. Not saying that they're necessarily the way we'd go, because it does, it has to be practical. It can't just,
But you could hear their experiences and
we can hear their experiences, we can get a rough estimate, and, if we go through and vet a select list of inspectors, that's a way we could go as well, so. But I agree that we need to start with the registration and hint that, something might, I don't know, coming down the line. So,
Understood.
Any other comments? No? Good?
I think I'm good.
Good. Okay. Well, I think it's productive, so at the next meeting, if we can have McKenna join us, and then we'll all have a chance to kind of read the, Mr. Davis, what you've drafted here, and take a better look at the items. I think that'd
I'd
be
probably
helpful.
want to have a slight, not a total revision, but a reformatting of this so that it's a standalone. Because right now, it just jumps out. It needs introductions and conclusions. And
That was the back half of the other ordinance. I
This
didn't
was,
wanna
this was just
print
part
it
of
out
it.
full, because you
Yeah.
already had the new one.
Yeah, yeah. I know, the city of Rochester has a registration ordinance. Does anyone know if it also has an inspection
It had both.
component?
I think it is.
I think it does too. I know people have spoke highly of Rochester in this room before, and so just,
If you'd like,
I'll
I
take a
can
look
look
at
that up and
theirs.
send it to you, and as soon as I
Yeah.
get it, there's no sense of waiting.
yeah,
Thank you.
okay. Great. All right, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to new business, under agenda item 9. And, I'm sorry?
They're asking if there's comments allowed right now.
No, further comment will be at public comment on, a little further down the agenda on item 11.
Well, you just talked about the inspection program, and that's not for the Nile. That's the registration program.
Yep, we don't have comments after each individual section, but we do have another chance for public comment.
Number 11.
Yep. Number 11 is the next public comment section, and the public can address whichever item you'd like to address, or anything to council. So right now we're on 9, let's see, B. renew tax settlement agreement. Proposed resolution 22-05. I'm just finding it in my packet here.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2205, summer tax collection and settlement agreement.
Second.
Thank you. Motion made by Helmut, seconded by Ross. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Roll call.
Let's do
Oh, it's a
roll call.
resolution.
Let's do
Sorry.
a roll call.
Okay, roll call vote, please. Yes.
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 Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, 9C. Schedule public hearing for delinquent violations to be placed on the 22 tax roll per village ordinance 321, section 70-78D.
I'll make a motion to set the public hearing for delinquent utility billing violations for May 10th and 2022 at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter.
Support.
Okay, motion made by Helmut, supported by Kemp. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Next is the second reading for the rental registration ordinance.
It's up in, it was originally under 8A, so.
Okay. So I'm just trying to
Really?
Don't make me flip pages.
Okay, so this proposed ordinance on its second reading, we did have a public hearing and a first reading already, so if this second reading passes a village council, then this ordinance for rental registration would be adopted 30 days following?
Yes.
Okay. So this residential rental ordinance registration, as we spoke about earlier in the meeting, it's for public safety. There are no fees charged for the registration of the rental unit. Essentially, there's going to be a registration form provided to the village by each property owner who has a property that's considered a rental. And there is a penalty of a civil infraction for noncompliance. But I would assume we would have significant public outreach
Yes.
before taking any enforcement activity at that level.
As the chief said, the information gets uploaded into his system, just so 911 dispatch knows where they're headed and what's there when they get there.
The biggest difference from last month to this was we removed all those references to the local agent out of there, because that was
Oh, okay.
kind of a doable.
And if we wanted to add in a provision for just a certification of the smoke detectors, carbon monoxide, and the address, how would we go about that?
Well, what you would do is on the form, I don't think you have to change the ordinance. You just say, by registering this unit as a rental registration, you are certifying that there is an appropriate smoke detector, carbon monoxide, and address designation with respect to that unit. You put it on the registration form. So when they sign the registration form, they're agreeing that that's in place.
And you don't believe that needs to be included in 1086?
That's where it would go, if you
Okay.
want to put it in, or you can just have it as part of the form.
Okay, if it's just part of the form, then we don't have to modify
Correct.
this. Okay.
Right.
I'll make a motion to approve the residential rental registration.
Second reading?
Second reading.
Support.
A motion made by Helmut, supported by Ken. Any discussion on the motion? Given Chief Schultz information and his letter and some of his real-life examples, I think this is really important. I don't think it's too much of a burden on landlords to come in and fill out a form. There's no fee charged. I do think it would improve the life of the people who live in the village and be helpful to our renter population here that we also represent as village council members. So that's my feeling on it. I just wanted to put out on the record. Because I know I've been kind of on the fence about these things. But that's that. So any other comment? Okay, do a roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Yes, motion carries. Next up is the West Nile Resolution 2204.
Back to back.
And here it is. I'll move to approve Resolution 2022-04, authorizing the village manager as agent for the village of Oxford in a manner and to the extent provided under Oakland County Board of Commissioners to request reimbursement of eligible mosquito control activities under the Oakland County West Nile Virus Fund Program.
Support.
Motion made by Cook, supported by Helmuth. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, a roll call vote, please.
Yes.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. 9G is our budget update and picking a meeting date to adopt the budget.
Okay, so after having our budget workshop a couple weeks back, I made some updates on it. The general fund is the top portion, and then the sewer, water, one of the bigger things that came out of the budget workshop was my omitting and forgetting that the marijuana registration amounts were recurring, and I didn't have any of those in. And what I've done now, the revenues, page 2, line 58, I did have revenue now applied there. The latest data we had from the MRA distributions through the state were 56,000 approximately per retail operation in a community. And then, of course, there's the equal amount given to county for everyone as well, so it's a double dip there. Trying to be a little cautious on that. I figured 3 of them may be open at the end of September. 1 opened this week, I believe. We have 2 that are getting close. So I put 3 of them in at 40,000 because who knows what the numbers will be. As more of them get open, maybe the numbers per will drop.
Once the feds get involved, there's not gonna be any money.
There you go. So for this year, though, I have 3 retail operations expected at 40,000, and then I think 7 of the 10 potential renewals. One of them I know will be a new one because it's taking place of an applicant that already applied for one spot. The application was fine, but now they've stepped aside, someone else is going to take up at that location. So that would be a new applicant having to reapply or apply for the first time. So it may be 6 recurring ones and 1 new one of that to make up that 7 of 5,000 each. So that was the biggest change. The things we discussed about an officer and a DPW full-time personnel are in here. To Mo's question, it's kind of hard to figure out exactly what kind of benefits they might need as far as health and dental and stuff, so I kind of took a middle-of-the-road cost. The old defined benefit pension plans have been closed for a number of years, so those costs that are associated with the all DPW are the last ones in that plan. Everything's in a 401k type now. Several of our new officers are already in the new plan. It was closed in 2012, I think. So anybody that new for an officer, the ones we saw getting the awards, as well as any new officer in here, as well as a new DPW personnel would be in the I think it's 10% 401k match. So those costs are significantly less. They start at the bottom of the scale. Bit of a guess on any health benefits. But as we discussed at our budget workshop, we have a couple DPW high seniority folks will be gone at least within a year or 2. The low seniority person, I think, is at 19 years. They were down a position from 6-8 years ago when they were scaling back. So Don has been wanting to at least get that position back. And if he's able to find a good candidate for that, if this gets approved, that'll be a chore in itself. And then within a year or 2, we'll have a vacancy. So that'll be barely an additional person for a certain time frame, and then right back to where we are. But there's a lot of experience in those guys that we have, if you add them all up, and so hopefully we can get some movement on that. Other than that, I mean, we don't need to go into a lot of detail on right now. up today. I just wanted to get you this little updated version. You guys can always reach out to me individually, questions, comments. I'm happy to answer some of those questions. I try to put some of the narrative on the right-hand side there, trying to explain what the revenue might be or where it's going to. The bottom of page 1, line 41, 57,000 road millage. That was an additional half mil last year being transferred to the local road fund. The local road is Park Street that we're looking to pave. Dennis and Hudson are major roads, so they come out of major street funds. The Backer, we talked about the equipment. DPW is looking for some replacement equipment. That is in the motor equipment fund. Page 25 there in the back, used Vector. And those are kind of hard to come by too. It might be one of those things that as they reach out, they might find one by this fall, who knows? So other than that, I think we just want to look at when we want to get together again, see what works for everybody. Yes.
Is the communication that received from 36 Park Street, is that in the paving?
No.
I didn't see it.
Okay.
I didn't get a copy of that. It wasn't to me. But I talked to
No,
most.
that's east of Pontiac.
The gentleman did come in yesterday and was, a little wound up. He hadn't heard from you folks yet as well. Did you send it to us? He said, yep, that's okay. That probably was in their mailbox. It probably just got to them last Thursday when I dropped off their packet. So I don't know how long it may have been here. I didn't see the email. It was right in the mailbox. I didn't see it. But he was in yesterday and I told him that chances are you guys just got that Thursday. And I did tell him a little bit about our water main projects coming up over the next several years. We will be going down Park Street, we will be going down Dennison Street, Hubby Street, Moyer Street. All those, most of those have the old water mains in them.
Thank you.
The other thing that came up, the resolution we did for the applying for the Representative Slotkin's potential grant opportunity. The information came out to me yesterday. There's several categories where you fall into. Category that our water line would fall into, the funding for that does not require any match. So, and it's funny because just a week or so ago, I saw online in the paper or something that all this money is coming to Oxford, all this projects she's got. I'm like, it was last year's projects. I thought, wow, how would she know? We just turned those in a week before, so should have known. It's a year later, we'll find out.
Yes.
So what, do you just need a new date?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we already have a meeting, that's right.
Yeah, because we got a meeting. You've got deadlines you have to.
Yeah, we already have one set up for,
Next Wednesday.
yeah, next Wednesday night.
When do we have it set up for?
The 20th?
Yeah. We have to adopt by the second meeting in May.
Right, that's why I was checking the calendar. So you got,
So, yeah.
you're already set for next Wednesday
Okay.
night.
Yep,
So you're timely.
Wednesday the 20th at 6 o'clock, right?
yep.
Yeah, so you're timely.
Good.
Yep, I forgot, we already had that down. Okay.
Okay.
That's it.
We're good on that? Okay. Any questions or comments from council before we move on? Okay, agenda item 10 is items removed from consent agenda. We have none, so then we are back to additional public comment. So again, I'll repeat what I had said earlier. In regard to public comment, you may voluntarily state your name and address when you approach the podium to speak. This is a time for the public to provide comments to council. Council cannot comment on your comments, but we're here to listen and take notes. Each person will be allowed an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. And again, please refrain from making any personal and public attacks against council members. It's not appropriate. Anyone like to speak under public comment, please feel free to approach the podium. Yes, please.
Hello again. My name is Connie Turland. I live at 51 Pearl Street and the ongoing saga with my neighbor. I did put up a fence as was recommended. That in turn became a debacle. The neighbor threw a fit and police had to be called out a couple of times and it was not good. And unfortunately, although I put up the fence, it did not help me at all with the lighting situation. which still has not been addressed. And as far as the fence goes, my neighbor was told that he could not attach to my fence. However, he took the existing fencing that he had to contain his own dogs. He removed that fence now and put it at each end of his property. So essentially, me and my neighbor and his neighbor to the north fenced in his yard for free. Which, you know, whatever, I don't care, I'm grateful for the fence. But the problem is now, as he stated, the day that my fence was being put up, he was very angry because I didn't give him the pretty side, because he felt that it would not contain his dogs. I just want to say that it is not my responsibility to contain his dogs. And the reason that I put the fence up with the pretty side to myself is so I can actually maintain my own fence. I learned from the neighbor to the north who made the mistake of giving the neighbor the pretty side, and now he has no way to access his own fence to maintain it. I am currently staining my fence. I cannot go on Mr. Shuey's property to stain my fence. So the only way for me to maintain my own fence, or someday have to replace panels or anything like that, is to be able to take panels down. Now, may I point out the very obvious problem with that is that my fence is containing 3 200-pound dogs. If I take down a panel to maintain my fence, those dogs are now free. Again, it is not my responsibility to contain or house his animals. So from what I understand, the situation is being addressed, but to my knowledge, I don't know what's happened as of yet. And we're still dealing with the light situation. I was encouraged to send the council jurisdictions or ordinances from other jurisdictions, which I did. And I've received, a bunch of, I've sent in 3 different ordinances from local townships, and I haven't received any resolution at all as to what's going to be done for the lighting. I've basically been told there's nothing we can do. And I'm sorry, that's not good enough. I've had lights shining in my windows since December. I mean, at what point are we going to actually do something about this problem?
We discussed this issue.
I think Joe went out there on the fence issue, right?
Yes, Sergeant Ashcroft and our inspector were there.
I don't know if you were there, Chief, were you?
Mo has some about the
We
lights,
actually
I think.
discussed this at the planning commission meeting. Lighting would fall into the zoning ordinance, which falls to the planning commission. We actually thought we found a provision that would address the situation. Oh, no, legalese, it doesn't work. So it's gonna be back in the planning commission's lap, probably at the next meeting. Government doesn't move fast, but I don't know who told you there was nothing we can do. We're definitely looking at solutions for you. You just gotta, it's not gonna be your most pleasant summer, but we're gonna do what we can for you. And if we can get you the agendas for the next planning commission meeting, whatever meeting it's gonna be addressed at.
Okay.
And we'll bring it up again.
I was told, the ordinance officer called me and he said that if something was put in place, the problem would be that the lights would be grandfathered in. And my response to that is, well, they're only grandfathered in if you allow them to be. Just because it's pre-existing doesn't mean that it can't be addressed.
You just gotta let us get through we'll get through it and we'll do what we can for you.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
Planning commission is where she should be at right now then.
I think the planning commission's gonna address it at their next meeting or the one after that. We just canceled our next meeting because there was nothing on the agenda. So probably What month is this? April? May 2nd.
First and third Tuesdays?
First and third Tuesdays. 7 o'clock, right here.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks for your comment. Would anyone else? Yes, sir.
Connected with this discussion, that's why I want to get up right away. Does this thing work, by the way?
I don't think so.
Oh.
You can
It's
flip
a
it up.
microphone, not an amplifier.
You can flip it up a little.
Raise it
towards
up a
you.
little.
Okay. Well, whatever. You guys can hear me anyways, right?
Yep.
So, I'm at 50 Pearl Street, right across the street. And kind of to bolster her claim, there's got to be something that is reasonable, that people can live next to one another and not have flashing lights in their dining room, living room area. So, last time I came here, I read the ordinance from a town in California that talked about nuisance lighting, and that part of the resolution was to put a shield on it so that it doesn't go beyond their property line. That to me sounds so common sense that why can't we do that? He'll get his light, we'll get our darkness, I guess, you know. But we need to get on that agenda, if that's what it is, the planning meeting that we have to get to. I don't care what it is, but the greasy hinge gets the grease, right? Or the squeaky hinge gets the grease. So we're kind of supporting one another, trying to get, but not just for ourselves, but anybody else in this village who has the same issue. Because this could happen with the advent of LED lighting and how powerful it is. I mean, this could happen to anybody, you know, at any time. And the neighbor has, you know, he's got his alarm system with cameras all around his house. I don't know what he's guarding, but, you know, he wants lighting for that, which is fine. If that's his choice, go ahead and do it. But he just needs to maintain it within his confine of his yard or his property line so that people around him can still exist and be happy. So I'm just talking common sense. Please put us on this agenda. Let's get this thing going as fast as we can. So if she gets invited, please invite me as well. Mark Klein at 50 Pearl Street.
Mark didn't used to be on the planning commission. You know how this works. We're not
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your comments. Would anyone else like to speak during public comment? Mr. Schneider?
My advice on that latest concern is read the sign ordinance, read the fence ordinance, particularly the part that talks about the pretty side of the fence. Maureen, you were instrumental in the pretty side of the fence.
Oh, ordinance changed, trust me, I'm very well.
So, a couple comments. One, I'm not sure you're aware of this, so this may be redundant, but we currently have registration programs in the village. Every commercial building has a registration program. A new tenant comes in, I fill out the little form. I used to pay the $75, tells the police department, the fire department, who the tenant is, who the contact person is, what their phone number is, et cetera, et cetera. It's already in place. Until the other day, when I came into the village and the lady said, we're not doing this anymore because I don't have time for it. I've got 3 other ones and I've got yours. I said, well, what's for? Well, I'm still too busy for this. So we're only going to do this when the person applies for a sign permit. So that's an interesting concept. There's also an inspection program that exists. Each year, annually, the fire chief or his staff, not the fire chief, wrong, his staff inspects every one of my buildings. They look for these things: smoke detectors, carbon dioxide, emergency lights, and fire extinguishers. I renew over 50 fire extinguishers a year in my buildings. So I'm not sure what you're planning on inspecting in my buildings that are all commercial. I already register the tenant, and I already participate in the inspection program. The thing I need is batteries, because these things go through a lot of batteries. And finally, I have one comment on your ordinance, if you have it in front of you. But you've totally missed the point of the chief's letter. Oh, Chief, one question. How many fires do you respond to a year in the village? How many?
In the village,
Yeah.
sometimes none, sometimes three or depends. But the total year, we probably have maybe, for the entire township, maybe 11.
I can't hear you. How many?
For the entire township, we may have 11.
No, I'm talking about in the village.
Township altogether. Village-wise, it's hard to say, sometimes we don't have any.
How much?
Sometimes we don't have any,
You don't have any fires.
sometimes.
So in a year, you had no fires.
Sometimes. Depends on the year.
Okay, so in a year, no fires. Okay. So if we were to look at this document, the ordinance, I just point out two paragraphs to you, number 4, which says the principal residence of the owner, which is a temporarily occupied by a person other than the owner for not more than 2 years. Well, this is the person that he wants. He wants somebody that's living in a house that needs to be registered, and this says he doesn't have to do it for 2 years.
That defines the dwelling unit. Mr.
And then the
Schneider, your
final
time's
thing
up,
is
so
number
please wrap up
6.
your comments.
Number 6 is a dwelling of which a parent, child, brother, or sister of an owner is living, and I've read this 3 times.
You've exceeded 3 minutes. Thank you.
Miss, are you interested in learning something or not?
Sure, come.
Well, how about
call,
listening
but
to
we
number
have a
6,
3-minute time
that is not a
limit.
completed sentence even, and I've looked at this document 3 times, and if all of you read it, no one noticed that you got an ordinance that it has a sentence that isn't even completed?
It's a list item, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
You'll never learn if you don't listen.
you. I'm good at listening. All right. Any other public comments? Mr. Young?
We're wasting our time with you people.
Mark Young, 31 North Washington. Just a few problems here. I think what the chief is reaching for, and I get you guys like your low-hanging fruit, you don't want to work too hard, but unfortunately, his letter just boxed you in a number of ways, that if you actually proceed and move with it, you got problems. 2, who's implementing this? Ms. Cook asked the right questions last meeting. How much is it going to cost? Who's going to implement this? In the last year, incorrect utility bills. So you're going to have the same people doing that? Are they the ones that are going to be doing that? And then, again, the question of how much does it cost? Because I've seen no business plan for this. 0. How much is it for salaries and benefits to implement this? How much is it for legal? How much is it going to be for your building guy, whoever that might be, or the electrical and the plumber and whoever you can get online, because you don't have it planned out yet. But you go ahead and pass it anyway. It makes no sense to me at all. And I get, so based on what the chief wrote and what you're shooting for is 2 entirely different things here. Because you're not going into somebody on Pleasant Street or First Street or anybody's house like that, that is a multifamily apartment in older single-family residences, which are not zoned correctly anyway for that, but you're allowing it, right? And have been converted to rental units. So it's a business in a residential neighborhood. It makes no sense.
Thank you for your comments.
Kelsey, just to confirm, we passed the registration only process
Correct.
tonight. We did not pass anything to do with an inspection.
Correct.
That's right. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Betty Young, 31 North Washington, and I guess just listening to this, it just seems, so the businesses are saying from a business perspective, there's already registration and inspection underway with limited fires that pretty much are limited in the community. But with your residential registration, again, it seems like a backward way of saying, we know you're a resident, but you're allowing certain residents in certain areas to make a profit by becoming a business because they're going to rent out a portion of their existing household, their basement, their attic, maybe their garage, or maybe an outstanding facility on their property. So they then, I heard from 2 different board members that it's a business. If you're making money, it's a business. And then also from the fire chief, he's indicating that the most of the problem occurs in the residential area. So it seems like you're allowing residents to change the zoning ordinance. So once they register and say they have renters in their facility, you're then declaring those facilities as multi-use, which then call them commercial. And I would then like to see that list so maybe product or developers could come into those areas and consider rezoning in those residential areas, because obviously the other residents, their neighbors, obviously don't mind that type of commercial activity, because you're going to have multi-cars and all that activity in that one small household. You're allowing a deviation from your own ordinances to occur on the soft side of just saying, please register for us for a fire safety. I get the fire safety, but you're opening the door that then allows every resident to have a rental property.
Thank you for your comments. I will follow up with Mr. Menor and Mr. Davis, and I'll contact you about this too.
Do I have any more time?
You have 1 more minute.
Okay.
Time's up.
One other thing that I forgot to mention is that I see that there's no charge for this to register. But I think you guys might have forgot a little component there, that somebody like Mr. Schneider, who has 19 properties, I myself only have 1 in town here, but maybe you have the entity that owns Crawford's, their administration or their admins do get paid. They probably get benefits like everybody else. And I would expect, if you actually implement this, you should expect some invoices from these entities, because their time is worth money.
There's no fee to the landlords, but of course everybody's time is worth something. It has a value.
No charge today.
Chief.
Good afternoon, Council. I want to address the safety factor that Chuck mentioned. Officer Irish came into your comment. Officer Irish, when you talk about safety, this year, this is his 2nd year, he's going to go for a life-saving award for stopping over 60 drunk drivers in the last 2 years from traffic violations. You're going to bring his name up, I'm going to bring it back to you. You got facts, I got facts too.
Chief,
this is a
Chief.
safety thing, okay?
Talk to the village president.
If there's ever any problems, questions, or concerns involving safety, then you guys need to bring it up to me and I will tell you what that safety factor is. But if you're going to bring our officers' names up, I'm going to step up here. Okay? We are doing the best that we can, and speeding on M24 is one of our major factors, okay? We're either doing too much or we're not doing enough. Just this last meeting, you mentioned that we weren't doing enough speeding violations. Now I guess we're doing too much. Or it's not enough for safety. So just bringing that up. Thank you for your time.
Are you ready for a motion to adjourn? Because I am.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll do committee reports, council comments, and then we'll get there quickly. Let's see, let's do NODA, Lori?
I don't really have any updates for NODA. As you know, the trolley's been going. It's been a great success. It's still in its pilot program, so let's see where that goes in the future. And that's really about it for NODA this time.
Excellent, thank you. Planning Commission and Cable Commission.
The planning commission met. We approved 2 more dispensaries, I think, since our last meeting. We discussed the lighting issue on Pearl Street. And we do have some ideas for that. Unfortunately, it's got to be patient, and ordinance doesn't get written in a day. The Cable Commission met. We had a great meeting. Although right now, for the life of me, I can't remember what we did. We discussed advertising. They're going to have a sign installed on their building. it was a really good meeting. We're discussing changes to the what's the word?
Bylaws?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Mike McDonald asked us to discuss if we need a super quorum to make changes to our bylaws. So we're gonna be discussing that at the next meeting. Mike couldn't be there, he had an emergency, so we'll bring that up again next 2 weeks.
Excellent. Thank you. Actually, DDA?
Could I defer to?
Yeah, Executive Westbrook, do you want to come up to the podium? And- Sure. Thank you.
We'll relieve her from my babysitting duties.
Okay. Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Hey, us moms, we ever stick together. Hey y'all. So DDA, we're going great. We hired an assistant this past month, and she has been rocking it out. We have been meeting with our committees and just booked the rest of the concert series. We have secured almost all of our vendors are ready for farmers market. We have additional sponsors for concerts in the park this year, which is going to let us extend the concert series to 10 weeks. We have our partnership with Lake Orion going on that we are continuing. We have secured funding for the trolley through December and an extra day that it'll be running. Businesses are recording 10 to 15% of an upswing on the days that the trolley is running, so that's great news. And let's see, we're gonna run sidewalk sales to correlate to the Flower and Art Fair in Lake Orion to try to bring more business downtown. We have additional grants that have been going out, facade grants. And there's a lot of good things that are happening with buildings downtown as well. Can't mention all of them that are closing this month, but they're coming to the DDA first. We're helping them through everything. We're helping them with signs, and it's been really great.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Can we do numbers out of more people want to go south on the trolley or come north on the trolley?
You know, I don't know that. So the way it's working is we have Lorraine who has just like a clicker on, and she's just clicking and counting the amount of people that are jumping on. We do know that Saturdays are outperforming Thursdays by like over 100%. So as we start to run this summer, we're going to focus on the Friday and Saturdays, and then we're looking at adding in either a Sunday or keeping it on that Thursday. But the ridership, she says, is going back and forth, but she doesn't really separate it out.
If you go, you gotta go back.
Right.
I'm just wondering if more people are trying to get like
tomorrow.
Marine businesses or Oxford businesses.
We have an economic vitality committee meeting tomorrow that's going to go over metrics on how to start tracking all of this for the rest of the year. So I will make a note and see if we can come up with some way to capture that.
I think you should just go sit on the trolley.
I mean, I'll ride round and round. That's fine. That's so fun.
We do the, when Oxford starts a Thursday.
Concerts?
Yes. Is there something going on in Lake Orion on Thursdays as well?
So actually, their concert series runs Wednesday nights.
Okay.
So we made sure that they weren't running the same nights for that reason, because we didn't want to split our audience. We really wanted people to get on. So that's why we're considering adding the trolley to Wednesday night during the summer to help out their concert series, and then keep the Thursdays for us.
Okay. I was almost wondering if rather on those days, rather than going, and I hate to, but for Lake Orion, just going at certain stops in Lake Orion to take people to the park, and then on Thursdays going to certain spots to take people to our park, rather than from town to town.
So, and
Or is that too?
well, the communication, I feel like, in the marketing then has to change, which we've really been pumping out the marketing. And then we have the QR codes that are made up with the maps currently. But I do see what you're saying. The only thing I would say is their stop, let's see, ours is by Funky Monkey, so not too far from the park. And theirs actually stops right by their park.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that people will just jump off and be able to walk down.
Just a little extra
Let's
parking,
have-
you can
yeah.
park in Lake Orion that
Yeah.
day. And, okay.
Well,
Yeah, that
I'm
sounds
going to
good.
add to the conversation tomorrow, and I'll talk with you further about accessibility. Like if there was somebody on there who legitimately couldn't walk, maybe Lorraine could.
Oh,
Like,
100%.
make a-
Yeah, she could definitely step
Hey,
in
let's
there.
let's stop over here. I know
Maybe
for
that app can
Yep.
traffic flow type thing.
But they have to legitimately not be able to walk?
Well, I mean, if you tell her, hey, I
can't just
can't
be
walk.
lazy.
I mean, my husband got on there and legitimately couldn't walk.
That's
And
true.
we-
That's true.
No, but I mean, to have a conversation around
Just teasing you.
accessibility, like if we need to stop at a park, maybe, I mean, I'm sure she would be
Oh, yeah.
agreeable to that,
And
but,
the way they pull behind is literally right behind the park, down, then past 5-1, so she could definitely pull in there if she needed to.
okay. I'll add that to our conversation tomorrow. Thank you.
I have an idea, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Kellyanne Trio?
Joe attended for me this past month.
Yes. They were talking about putting in a grant, people, Lynn Moran, the manager, permission to put in for a grant there. Not a whole lot on the agenda for that night, paying some bills. Things done, we were there about an hour.
Is the can drive done?
I am told it was, because we were gonna haul ours out back last week, and Vicky said it's over. So.
What was the
I
final
didn't hear
numbers,
the numbers
chief?
yet.
It was over $4,200.
Great.
I got more than that in my shed. Kelsey, I did forget one thing that they talked about at the Cable Commission.
Sure.
We discussed last month, I think, that they wanted to discuss being made the station, the official
record.
station of record.
Okay.
And Bob was way off base for why they wanted that. Terry unfortunately couldn't be here, but they do have their reason, and I think it's something we should consider, so that they do get all the information for everything that's going on in town, equally, and they don't have to learn about it secondhand.
Okay. Does she have a proposed resolution she could send to us?
I believe she did last month, but I,
Okay.
No, I haven't
No.
anything from her yet.
okay,
She indicated she was going to, but I haven't seen anything from her.
I'll get it from her.
Great, thank you. Mr. Medora, any report?
No, we haven't met one over the budget and things like that. That's looking good, and we'll see you again next week.
Yeah.
I'll be at the environmental compliance in Novi next week that night, so I'll be coming from Novi to here for that.
Be it what?
And Michigan Environmental Compliance Conference, about all our MS4 permit and our MPS phase 2 permits. They keep adding to it. But I'll be coming from Novi to here that night,
Okay.
so that'll be fun.
Yeah. Great drive. Ms. Onika?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Davis?
No, nothing. I just took a short vacation. I found myself on the beach. For some reason, I text Maureen a picture of a tequila bottle. I don't know why.
One last thing.
I get that a lot.
For those who haven't heard, Don Brantley's mother-in-law passed last weekend.
Who's
He was
that?
off- Don Brantley's mother-in-law,
Oh, okay.
wife's mom. It was a little unexpected. But he was off most of last week, back to work this month, today, or yesterday actually, back to work.
Okay.
Be out of town for out-of-town memorial back to the Carolinas here in a week or two.
Okay. Sorry to hear that. Thanks for letting us know. Council comments, start at the end. Portia?
I have none tonight, thank you.
Tom?
I have a picture at the bottle if anybody wants to see it.
Evidence?
And I just want to say, every department in the village, including the township, we all have to be supportive of each other. If the fire department does well, all of Oxford does well. If Oxford Township's building department does well, if the DDA does well, if NODA does well, if the Cable Commission, we need to support each other before we start going outside. I think if you look at every banner, we're stronger together. That's what you've been hearing for 4 months. So let's be stronger together and support each other. And that's it.
Ross?
Just thank you everyone for your patience with my kids today. My husband works for Child Protective Services and got an emergency call. He's on call right now and got it right as I was about to walk out the door, so, thank you. for
All
that.
priorities.
Thanks for still coming.
Just want to thank you all for a productive discussion.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Ms. Ogg for being such an active resident in our community, always attending our meetings. I really appreciate your presence here, so thank you. All right, let's do motion to adjourn at 8:31.
Support.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Good.